One of the questions we often ask when we get into these sorts of topics is, what are the sort of areas that you have experienced yourself as a parent, you've experienced yourself as a child, you've experienced your friends and family members going through, and so on and so forth, where there are issues with the parent-child relationship. What are the things where, whether it's philosophy or psychology or anything else, what are the things that you would want to target within that dynamic, within that relationship? Where are the problems? Where are the difficulties? Where are the challenges? So we don't have a whiteboard here, that's fine. So in the whiteboard of your mind, just make a note, just start thinking about that. The first one is attachment. So when we discuss attachment, in the context here, we're saying that this is the single biggest barrier to successful parenting. Broadly speaking, we say that attachment is the single biggest barrier to harmony in any relationship. But the reason that we're discussing with regards to parenting here is because it is incredibly powerful, this relationship between the parent and the child. And so if we can start to understand how attachment functions at the parent-child relationship and start to work on it there, then it's like altitude training. So if you can, jog for 10 miles at 6,000 feet, then when you come down to sea level, you're a dynamo. Right, so if you can start to develop some detachment with regards to your parent-child relationship, then anywhere else is going to be much easier to practice. So this is the simple and very powerful definition of what attachment is. Attachment is love plus selfishness. So what is love? We talk about love, we sing about love, 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 love all over the place. What is love? Identification, which means what? Identification. So what does it mean? If I identify with you, what does that mean?
You see us as the same.
Yeah, oneness. We've used this example before. You see a mother holding her newborn infant, and she's looking down at it with that amazing feeling that she's experiencing. The baby's gazing up and whatever. How many people are there? How many individuals are there? Okay, intellectually we can say there's two. There's the mother and the child. But if we answer the question emotionally, how many are there? There's one. It's a single unit comprising mother and child. It was just a few short months ago that the child was within the mother's own body. Now the cord has been cut and now the body is on the outside, but really is it still two? Is it still one? So love is identification. It's a sense of oneness. The problem is not the identification. In fact, love is always positive. So the old phrase, love hurts? No, love does not hurt. There's too much love? No, you can't have too much love. Not possible. Love is always used in the positive connotation in that regard. The problem is when the love becomes vitiated by a sense of dependency or wanting or selfishness. Then it becomes attachment. So there is a person there, a child there, who has all of these beautiful qualities and properties. I start to want them for myself. I want to get something out of them. So there's nothing wrong with enjoying the parent-child relationship. This is not what we're saying. What we are saying is the problem arises when we experience a beautiful quality in another human being and we start to get a sense of, I want it again. I want it again. You guide the child. That child is wholly encompassed within your value system, within your ideology, and what you believe, he believes. And it's a very nice feeling. What happens when the child gets to, say, 11, 12, 13, 14? There's another separation, as it were. They start to push back. Whatever you believe, they will deliberately believe the opposite. It's a natural thing, in the same way that the child gets expelled from the womb at that age. As the intellect starts to be born, then they expel themselves again from your ideological womb, as it were. And again, there's a feeling of separation. When the child no longer agrees with my opinions, follows my values, does what I like, etc. There's a feeling of discomfort. Why? I want my child to give me the affection. I want my child to agree with my values and follow my way of thinking. So this is the attachment. It's a sense of dependency. Yeah, in fact, there's a beautiful example that one of our other class members was talking about. She's now a grandmother. And she was talking about when she was a new mother. And she said she looked down at this squalling infant, this perfect little helpless, vulnerable thing, and she said, my life had meaning. I felt so necessary. I felt so needed, indispensable. And it's true. You are indispensable. You are needed. Without you, that child will die. All of a sudden, your life does have a new dimension of meaning because you have to start thinking in terms of another human being which cannot look after itself. So the meaning is there. That beautiful feeling is there. That feeling of being indispensable is an accurate representation of the truth. The problem comes is when we start to derive our sense of self from that. We depend upon that child to give us something from outside of ourselves. This is how the attachment is starting to form. And then when the child no longer needs us in the same way, it becomes painful. So it's the mind's dependency upon the other for a sense of self, for a sense of well-being, for whatever word you want to use here. One of the biggest problems is that it doesn't feel negative. It feels like love. So what this means is that we need to recalibrate our emotions so that when we are going through attachment, we can recognize, this is something which is negative. It feels really good, but it's something negative. Revenge. What does revenge feel like? When you get it. Even the thought of it. Okay, you're too pure, don't answer the question. For the rest of us. It feels so good, doesn't it? Someone's harmed you, and the thought that that guy's going to get his comeuppance and I'm going to make it happen. It feels great. But it's harmful for us. It's harmful for our inner peace. So this idea that something feels good doesn't mean that it is good. So we need to recalibrate. So one of the examples we've got on the slide is of, and in fact, this is given in the book, The Holocaust of Attachment. There's a son, this is in India, there's a son who is a maths prodigy, and he achieves a scholarship to go and study abroad, fully paid, so he'll be working in his area of interest where he's a prodigy, a fully paid scholarship abroad, an amazing opportunity. And the parents' response is, no. He should not go, he should be with us, he's our only son. Now everybody else in the family, all the other family members, etc., were trying to convince the parents, let this boy go, what an incredible opportunity. You could never afford this. No, he should be with us. So the question is, what does it feel like from the parent's perspective? If you were to ask the parents, why are you saying he should not go? What would be their justification? What would be their genuine reason? They'd be sincere. To protect him. It's in his best interests. He should be here with us. It feels like love. I'm only doing what is the best thing for the child. It feels like the duty of care. But the attachment is functioning in a way to the opposite. It's holding the child back rather than allowing the child to proceed and to progress. But it doesn't feel that way. It feels like I'm doing the right thing as a loving parent. And so this is really one of the most starkly frightening aspects of attachment, is that when we are attached, we will often confuse it for love and say, well, I'm obviously doing the right thing because it feels like love to me. So this is where an understanding of what attachment is, how it arises, how it functions is so important, so that we can start to identify it.